Welcome back to the Buzzworthy Consultant Podcast, where we chat with the leading thought leaders in the consulting industry. Today, I have the pleasure of talking with Ken LaCroix, who has been guiding businesses through rapid growth, restructuring, mergers, and acquisitions throughout his entire career. Nowadays, he's focused on his fractional CFO and outsourced accounting services. Let's see what makes Ken so buzzworthy. Welcome to the show, Ken. How are you today?
I'm great, Buzz. How are you?
I'm doing well. I heard that we were talking about earlier, you're in sunny Southern California. It's probably getting a little hot this time of year, huh?
It is. It is. Although it's nice and warm year round. That's why we have traffic and pay lots of taxes.
Yeah, you guys recently had to overcome some really hot situations up in the hills there. So
Fortunately, we're south of there. So yeah, devastating fires, but fortunately we're well south of there. Thank you.
That's good. That's good. Yeah. Hopefully everybody is able to get what they need to recover from there. There's just a lot of horror stories. I've actually, one of our folks that work at my company is just north of there. So, when I was there visiting, those fires were going on. So I actually got out right before all of the smoke clouds enveloped LAX. So
Yep.
I got lucky. So anyway, with that, we're not talking about forest fires today. We're going to be talking about financial prowess. And, before the show, we were talking about the fact that you gravitate towards the commercial construction industry. And in one of the reasons for that is that, you said that there's just a lot going on in those businesses, which is, I definitely understand that. I've actually had clients in the past in that space, and it is one of the most grueling industries that I could imagine trying to run. So I'm sure you could probably start us out with maybe a little bit of insight on what is the biggest hurdle that these types of businesses are trying to overcome as they're kind of graduating from the 7-figure space and into the 8-figure revenue space.
It's really about keeping track of what's happening on their jobs. And when you're on the smaller side, it's easy to visit all the jobs. Easier, I should say. The number of jobs is reasonable. The number of supervisors that you have or project managers that you have are easier to corral. It's easier to get everyone in the same room. It's easier to just keep an eye on activity as the president, owner, CEO, all of those roles. But as you move into the larger number of jobs, complexity of jobs, geographic area of jobs, it becomes almost exponentially more difficult to keep an eye on those things from a visual or activity standpoint. So that's problem number one. Now,
if that wasn't enough.
right. So you've got that, but also historically, there's just so much activity that happens on jobs between labor, materials, change orders, difficulties on the job, people not showing up, wrong parts, wrong materials getting delivered. Everything that you could possibly have go wrong on a daily basis often does. And the systems to keep track of that, while very robust, historically have been a huge lift for people to keep up to date. So they're manual processes that have been slightly improved by technology, but it's basically a lot of manual record keeping that just gets duplicated in a computer screen. And so
Gotcha.
we often find that the data that's there is behind, it's too summary. And then once it gets all put in, it gets output in hundreds of pages of job cost reports that have maybe 3 pages worth of data that's worth looking at. But to go through 100 pages to find it, very, very difficult. So a lot of that stuff sort of gets ignored is kind of the next challenge.
Right. I mean, I think that you hit the nail on the head when you said, basically alluded to the fact that you got crap input data will give you crap output data. Right. And we do summarize things. I mean, I've got a project management system for my company, and everybody likes to just kind of gloss over things, and that's great when you're dealing with an overall job, like a big scope, right? But when you're doing time and materials, that's like the death of invoicing, right?
Yep.
It's like,
Yep.
oh, yeah, I just worked on this. Well, what did you work on for 8 hours?
Yep. Yep.
It's
Yep.
like, yeah. So, what is like one of the first steps in getting like cleaning up the data and getting it? I mean, this is kind of a two-sided coin here. So, first, we have to get the data in a timely manner, right? That's one of the things you said. And then second, we got to get good data in. So, I mean, that's a heavy lift in its own. How do you approach that? What's the strategy there?
So it's really three pieces to it. First of all, because of the difficulties, there are numerous Excel spreadsheets or
Mm.
SharePoint files or Word documents or Post-it notes or pieces of paper that have all this relevant data on it. And so the first order of business is to find out what they're actually tracking manually. And I would
Mm.
say Excel is all manual as well. It looks like a
Mm.
computer program, but it's just it's glorified, paper.
Right.
And first we figure out what they're tracking and what's important to them and how they're doing that. And then we try and get that into the system in some way. If their existing ERP or job costing system supports that, we'll try and find ways of streamlining things. So there's lots of things we can do with the data entry screens, lots of things you can do with pictures, with AI. There's lots of things you can
Mm.
do with geolocation. So historically, people need to record their time. But if I have a geolocation program sitting in my cell phone, I actually know when my supervisors or workers get on the job, and I
Mm.
know when they're there and where they are. They don't need to log that. So it's finding ways of efficiently tracking the information that we need without having to people stop and actually do it. And
Mm-hmm.
then since we're doing that on a daily basis, we can review it the next morning. And if there's some anomaly in the data, we can address it right away. Hey, I
Right.
noticed you didn't have your phone turned on yesterday. So where
Oops.
were you yesterday? As opposed
Mm-hmm.
to the end of the month when we're looking at the job cost reports and we see a whole day missing, no one remembers where they were on the second Tuesday of the month.
Right.
So addressing those sort of little things, if you will, while that happens. Then number two is get it into the system as much as possible and find which reports or which reports either exist or which data tables we need to find the data that we're looking for to give us the outputs that we need. And so
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it's reports, sometimes it's APIs, sometimes it's SQL tables, but finding where the information is. And then the third step is to really pull all that together and create visualizations, reports, dashboards, things that people can use to get the data that is as current as, say, yesterday into
Mm.
what happened on this 4-month-old job, but I want it updated as of yesterday, including every day prior, and what's happening across my region, what's happening across my subs, what's happening across my superintendents,
Mm.
which meetings do I need to have with my project managers, who's on track, off track, where are we
Mm.
missing change orders, where are we overbilled, where are we underbilled, is there a problem in accounting getting the bills out, any of those little problems, if you will, all get highlighted because we're looking at
Mm.
the data on a dashboard, hopefully every morning from the following day.
Right. And I think that that's, you were touching on technology, really creating a shortcut, right? We have these tablets that can tell us where we're at, when we're at there, how long we were there, all that good stuff. As long as it's turned on, of course, yeah, like you were saying, that's like the biggest thing. Can we hit the on button before you get on site? Please, please, please. Right. And we even have geolocation and trackers for our fleets
Yep.
that can sync with that and all that good stuff. So now all they have to do is just say what was happening. And I think that it's all of that mundane and repetitive data entry that I think really drives people away of getting good data in there. And it's like, okay, we'll get the rote information in there automatically using technology. Now, all we ask is to have that good information in there. And so, what's the difference between having good information and bad information when it comes to scaling an 8-figure construction company?
The hardest part is going down a rabbit hole based on the information you're seeing, pursuing a sort of a root cause analysis, talking to people, uncovering things, running additional reports, finding additional data, and then you realize that the problem is not with the job or the person or the client, it's with the data. So you just
Mm.
kind of throw your hands up and you've wasted an hour, 3 hours, 5 hours. Maybe it's an hour across three different people. You've
Mm,
interrupted things. And so what that tends to do is you're sort of reticent to find every problem and pursue it. You say,
mm,
well, it's not that big a problem. And if there's a 50% chance it's a data problem, not a real problem, then I'm going to
mhm,
skip it for now. That's I think the biggest obstacle to pursuing the anomalies is
mhm,
if you knew every anomaly really had a root cause that you could delve into, I think you'd spend more
mhm.
time pursuing those root causes.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's funny because people are, you have the line workers, and they're like, "I'm just here to do a great job," and then but the manager's there to make sure that the margins are there so we can pay you for a great job.
Yep.
And sometimes that gets lost in translation because they just think, oh, you've got a bunch of bean counters and, you're not swinging hammers out here and blah, 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 blah. 9 times out of 10, they did swing a hammer. At some point, somebody was holding a shovel before they were holding the pen. I promise you that. I've worked with enough of my clients to know, like, most of them start with a truck and a shovel, or a
Yep.
truck and a toolbox, right?
And
And
a
I
cell
think,
phone. And a cell phone.
and a cell phone, yeah,
That's
depending on
their
how old
office. That's their office.
they
Yep.
are.
Yep.
I've had a client for 17 years now, and he had the company for 18 years before I knew him. And so that was back, and so when he started, it was back right before cell phones became a commodity. Like,
Yep.
not everybody had a cell phone. Not even everybody had a brick yet. Like, a brick was a,
Yep.
a big thing, right?
Yep.
And so to watch that technology go, for people who are very hands on, there's got to be kind of a cognitive dissonance to the fact that their work is so manual, and then you're coming in and saying, well, that's great and all, but for us to make the strategic decisions that you need to get you to the next level and make sure you don't go broke doing it, we need to be leveraging this technology. What is the mindset shift that you find is the most powerful and most transformative when you're helping these companies make that shift?
Great, great, difficult, hard question. Um, because it's really about change management at the end of the day.
Mm, mm,
I've been
hmm.
doing it this way for fill in the blank, 17, 35 years, 17 days, 35 months. And again, they all come up through the ranks learning habits. I'm not going to call them good or bad, just habits.
I
And
love it.
so the tendency is just let me do my job. I'll deal with the problems. I'll solve the problems. It's why I like doing this. No one's bugging me. No one's looking over my shoulder. At the end of the day, job well done, and off we go. But there's data, there's stuff that happens during that job that would be helpful for others to understand, whether that's training, whether
Mm,
that's maybe I just missed it, or maybe I didn't count right, whatever that might be. So there are opportunities there. And so I think it starts at the top. I've never rarely do I see the frontline employees or the middle management say, we really need to do this better. It really needs to get done at the top. The president, the
mhm,
owner, the VP level people saying we need to institute technology, we need to have better controls over our data so that we can ensure that we're more profitable, so that the business can ensure that it keeps doing the good things longer. So first step
mm,
is sort of at the top, but then you've got all the middle managers that say, look, I'm
mm,
already too busy. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to add to this. So
mhm,
what we try and do there is subtract from them. We try and find things.
mm,
They don't usually realize how much time they're spending on post-it notes, Excel, Word documents. And so we try and trade that time for something else. And then what we really try and truly minimize is the impact on the frontline worker. That's really
mm,
where our hearts are, because they're doing the work and they literally don't have time for some, to tell anybody else about what they're doing. So
mhm.
I'll give you a potential scenario.
Okay.
So rather than having the frontline workers, the construction folks input something, or
Mm,
rather than have the middle managers write something in an Excel spreadsheet or a Word document or write something down, what if you were just to call each person and ask in a 5-minute structured basis at the end of the job, what went well, what didn't go well, and what help do you need? And you
mm,
recorded that. And then that gets transcribed. And then that goes into a database. And now all of a sudden you have a record of everything that happened on that job, just a 5-minute summary. But they're probably
mhm,
going to, you'll talk about the most important things, both wins and challenges, but no one's writing anything down. What time did you get there? I got there at 8. What time did you leave? I'm done at 3. Did you take lunch? Yeah, half hour lunch. Well, AI can do that math. I now know how long they were there.
Mm-hmm.
And what job are you at? That's right. I'm at the Smith job. Okay, well
Mm-hmm.
now I can look up and know the job number. Like I don't even need them to look up the
Mm-hmm.
job number anymore. And then,
Mm-hmm.
well, it's John, and I know John does these 3 different cost codes. So I'm going to ask him, what was it today? Well, it was a little bit of framing and a little bit of demo. Now, well, was it half and half, a third? Sure, like half and half. Great. I don't need the data to be 100% accurate. I need it to be about 80% accurate. And most people can get within 80% accuracy very quickly. So now that's the paradigm shift. Now, we already know that collecting that data is important, but how great would it be if every project manager talked to a few people on the job and said, what happened today? What do I need to worry about tomorrow? That all
Mm-hmm.
by itself is beneficial. So we try and stack the wins on top of
Mm-hmm.
something that you should already be doing.
Right. I love that. I'm just like listening to you going, an AI can actually do the interviews for you while they're driving away from the job. It doesn't even have to take away from their day. It gives them something to do on the way home.
Well, and that's true too. You can just ask them when they're driving home to
Yeah.
summarize their day. And some people will
Yeah.
talk for 30 seconds and some might talk for 30 minutes, but it doesn't
Right.
matter. You can summarize all of it.
And you could have AI make the call. So now you're not
Oh, the
adding to the
prompt.
middle managers.
Yeah.
They've
I
got
didn't even
voice.
think of that. I didn't even think of that, Buzz. Well done. Well done.
Man, it's amazing. Yeah, because you're talking about a very set number of questions, right?
Yeah.
And you can train the AI to be more inquisitive. So it's like, okay, he said this, but then it can decipher. Well, they were a little like you were kind of saying, is well, was it a third of the day or half of the day? Oh, it was more half of the day. Oh, okay, great. So the AI can actually do some of that reasoning for us now. And now say you have 50 people that are out on job sites today. Do you have somebody can call 50 people before they all get home? No, AI can. That's
Yep.
awesome,
Yep.
right?
Yep. Yep.
And that all gets automated into, like you were saying, take it off of their plate because now we can use the automation. It's in there. It's doing the reporting. It can compile that reporting, put it into a spreadsheet, and now it's in their top of their inbox when they get to the next day when they get to work. And everybody has what they want.
So not in a spreadsheet, into a data warehouse and visualize it. That's
There
the
we
only
go.
that's the only thing I would change.
Dashboards. There we go. Dashboards. Yes, I love
Get us
dashboards.
out of Excel hell. Get us out of
There
those
you go.
spreadsheets. Death to spreadsheets. Get it
Yeah,
in the data warehouse. Keep it all in
got it.
one spot. Keep it all in one spot.
I love that. So what I'm hearing as we're wrapping up today is that being a CFO is not necessarily counting the beans. It's how the beans are counted that counts.
It's deceptive. I think most people have a deceptive way of looking at where CFOs come from, and many of them do come from accounting. And
Mm-hmm.
I think when you say counting the beans, you refer to that, right?
Right.
So
Right.
we think the best CFOs have a strong handle on accounting, but that's
Mm-hmm.
one tool in the toolkit. They really need to be strategic. They need to have an operational focus, a customer service focus, a, you know, a lot of other focuses. They need to be outside the business, bringing data in, information in, and in the business, sharing it across the different disciplines or silos or cultures. And so it's using the financials to prove things out, understanding that the beans are counted well, making sure that data is good, but also bringing in other data that accounting either never gets or gets too late to do anything about. And so we think the combination of both is really important. And again, back to our data approach, we can mix financial data with operational data, with customer data, with all kinds of data. And all of a sudden now you don't have a lonely picture of numbers. You don't have just sales. You have sales compared to how many customer calls we made and how much sales I might have in the future based on the customer calls we made this week or something like that. So we can start to predict what's going to happen with sales rather than say, this happened to sales. So what are we going to do now?